In a world teetering on the edge of geopolitical instability, certain scenarios, though unthinkable, demand our contemplation. What if the unthinkable happened? What if a nuclear device, of a scale witnessed only once before in human history over a city, detonated in the heart of a major city like Tel Aviv, Israel? What if Iran had a small nuke, unfinished, but almost ready to be used? Now we know that there are more nuclear facilities hidden underground in the desert of Iran that were not bombed by the US, so it is not insane to think about this. After all, the Islamic regime has been preparing for this scenario for years. Today we delve into a hypothetical, yet chilling simulation. We're not here to predict, but to understand the profound and far-reaching consequences of such an event, both for Israel and its neighbors, and the wider world. This time we consider a device similar to the one that devastated Hiroshima, even though today there are much larger nuclear weapons, but we will use this as a comparison point. Part 1. The immediate annihilation. Let's imagine the moment of detonation. A nuclear device, approximately 15 kilotons, the destructive power equivalent to 15,000 tons of TNT, similar to Little Boy, dropped on Hiroshima. The immediate impact would be an unimaginable cataclysm. Within milliseconds, an intensely hot fireball reaching millions of degrees Celsius would vaporize everything within a kilometer. An unimaginable supersonic shockwave would utterly flatten buildings for miles, not just damage, but complete obliteration. Reinforced concrete structures would crumble, and steel would twist into unrecognizable forms. The sheer force would throw debris, including vehicles and large objects, for vast distances, creating a lethal hail of projectiles. Intense thermal radiation would cause third-degree burns and instant death for anyone exposed within several kilometers, igniting widespread firestorms. Casualties would immediately surge into the millions. Immediate fatalities from the blast, thermal radiation, and initial collapsing structures would be catastrophic. Those who survived the initial blast would face horrific injuries, severe burns, traumatic amputations, internal bleeding, with virtually no medical infrastructure left to offer aid. Communication networks, power grids, transportation systems, the entire urban fabric would be annihilated or rendered useless across a vast area. Panic and unimaginable chaos would consume the survivors in the outer rings of destruction. The devastation wouldn't halt at Tel Aviv's immediate suburbs. Cities like Herzliya, Ramat Gan, Bnei Brak, and Holon, all densely populated and directly bordering Tel Aviv, would experience immense catastrophic damage. Within several kilometers of ground zero, buildings would be largely destroyed by the blast wave, resembling the flattened landscapes seen in Hiroshima. Beyond that, for many more kilometers, widespread structural damage would render countless buildings uninhabitable, and a massive portion of the population would suffer severe burns, blunt force trauma from collapsing structures, and acute radiation exposure. Further out, cities like Netanya, Rehovot, Ashdod, and even parts of Jerusalem could experience significant overpressure from the blast, causing widespread broken windows, minor structural damage, and widespread panic. Critically, these cities would also fall within the initial downwind fallout zones, forcing immediate and chaotic evacuations, overwhelming regional infrastructure, and stretching emergency services, which would themselves be decimated beyond any conceivable limit. The entire central region of Israel would be transformed into a humanitarian disaster zone, with an unprecedented internal refugee crisis unfolding within hours. Emergency services would not just be overwhelmed. They would be non-existent in the blast zone and severely crippled far beyond. Hospitals would be reduced to rubble. The initial hours would be a desperate individual struggle for survival amidst a landscape of death and ruin, with a profound sense of horror and despair gripping anyone who witnessed it. Part 2. The spreading scourge. Beyond the immediate, unspeakable devastation lies a far more insidious and widespread threat: radioactive fallout. A device of this magnitude would generate substantial radioactive particles, carried by prevailing winds, creating a vast and deadly plume. The extent and direction of the fallout would depend heavily on meteorological conditions, but a significant portion of Israel, potentially covering half the country or more, would face severe, life-threatening contamination. This would necessitate rapid and chaotic evacuation of tens of millions, creating a humanitarian catastrophe on an unprecedented, almost unmanageable scale, far exceeding any disaster in modern history. Exposure to high levels of radiation would lead to rapid and agonizing deaths for many from acute radiation sickness. Even those who survive immediate exposure would face debilitating long-term health consequences, a dramatic surge in various cancers, genetic mutations, birth defects, and chronic illnesses that would plague generations. The concept of survivor would be redefined by a lifetime of suffering. Economically, Israel would cease to exist as a functional state. Its primary financial, technological, and cultural hub would be gone. Agricultural lands would be rendered unusable for decades, if not centuries, leading to immediate and severe food shortages. The cost of rebuilding would be in the trillions, a burden no single nation or even international coalition could reasonably bear. Socially, the fabric of Israeli society would be utterly torn apart, replaced by widespread trauma, irreparable loss, and a desperate, likely futile struggle for any semblance of recovery. Mass migrations and a profound brain drain would further cripple any future prospects. Part 3. A regional cataclysm and global repercussions. The impact of a Hiroshima-sized detonation would not only be confined to Israel's borders, it would unleash a regional, even global cataclysm. The radioactive cloud, while dissipating over time, would travel thousands of kilometers. Depending on wind patterns, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, and potentially reaching Turkey or even parts of North Africa, Europe, virtually all neighboring countries would experience measurable to significant levels of radioactive fallout, leading to widespread public health crises, contamination of water sources and agricultural lands. This would spark mass panic, potentially leading to vast and unmanageable cross-border displacement, overwhelming international humanitarian aid systems, and creating immense pressure on already strained resources. Geopolitically, the region would be plunged into an unprecedented abyss of instability and chaos. The act itself would be seen as an unforgivable act of war, virtually guaranteeing retaliatory actions on an unimaginable scale, potentially spiraling into a wider regional or even global conflict involving nuclear powers. International alliances would shatter, global trade would halt, and the international order as we know it would fundamentally collapse under the weight of this crisis. Regarding the radioactive cloud's dissipation, while the most dangerous, highly concentrated initial fallout would settle within days or weeks, the dispersal of the entire radioactive cloud and the decay of all harmful radioactive isotopes to safe levels would take a very long time. The most potent short-lived isotopes would decay relatively quickly, reducing immediate danger from airborne particles. However, longer-lived isotopes with half-lives ranging from years to tens of thousands of years would persist in the environment, in soil, water, and food chains, for generations. The air itself would likely clear significantly within months, but the ground contamination would be a pervasive and enduring problem. The time frame for the cloud to largely dissipate from the atmosphere and cease posing an immediate widespread airborne threat would likely be in the order of weeks to a few months. But the ground contamination, the irradiated soil and water, would render large areas uninhabitable and unusable for agriculture for many, many decades if not centuries. This would create a permanent no-go zone in the heart of the Middle East, a scar on the earth visible for human generations. This simulation, while chilling, serves a crucial, terrifying purpose: to underscore the absolute and utterly catastrophic consequences of nuclear warfare, particularly with a device of this magnitude in a densely populated area. There is no limited nuclear war, there is only annihilation and an enduring shadow that would stretch across the globe for generations. It is a stark, urgent reminder of the paramount importance of diplomacy, de-escalation, and unwavering international efforts to prevent the proliferation and use of these devastating weapons. Because in such a scenario, there are no winners, only the shared and profound destruction of all that we value, and a world irrevocably altered by the fire and fallout. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more.